This is a video to showcase current prototype and work. This isn't the original screen, the starting screen. Right now, because assets are very far and few between, I haven't actually coded in a starting screen. And of course, due to things before we start the actual presentation, due to Unity update into 2021, some of the codes that have been coded in do not work. So I don't know if it's because 2019 coding is technically outdated, or it's because the new version that these codes need updated. I had them working in January, February, and some of them have now just stopped working, and I need to actually go back in and try to fix them for when I work on getting the prototype more advanced. So basically this is saying, come in, deep in the forest, lies a secret, why don't you come and play? Discover the fears waiting for you, where there's time for you to visit. And this is based off of a Dark Horror Circus. And I'm not too sure if people know the vocalized song, Dark Wood Circus, which describes an Edo period Japan traveling circus, which, if I remember from the facts that I read, back in the Edo period, it was not really the best time to actually be alive if you were not rich. And a lot of people actually made money by kidnapping or buying people that were not wanted by society. Basically homeless, orphans, and all that, and these people would actually turn them into freaks. And these wealthy people would pay to go and view this. Through, I don't know if actual exploitation really did happen. It's assumed it did, but in the actual vocalized song, you can see where people have actually been experimented on. You had two people that are actually combined, and you can see where their skins can sewn together. So I mean, I think it's really more based on the player's interpretation of the song and the story that I'm going to try to tell in this. So I mean, basically, it's, it's really more a player's choice than, because I don't want to have like a set path. I'd rather the player explore and make up their own story to it. Because if you base it too much off of the actual song or the actual events that happen, then I think it takes away from it, where if the player makes up their own story, their own playing, I think it makes it more fun. And that said, I don't even know if you could actually find the remains of actual one of these circuses. Because as I said, this was Japan, and as far as I know, there's no date has ever been any remains found of one. So, but upon clicking, we actually will go into the main game, which is supposed to actually be a camera. Unfortunately, this is probably not the best looking right now, but as I said, I was looking around, and there's a lot of different ways you can show a camera scene, so this was just to test it out. This is actually the text area. Of course, this is one of the areas that actually don't work. I don't know what happened. I had everything up to the last part where it's supposed to actually turn off, not work, and I'm going to assume it's probably due to the updates. So I'm going to work on fixing that. Because I originally had a different plan. I had another text code that I was going to use, and again, that doesn't work. So, as I said, because as you use the updates, it gets harder and harder. So, you could have one code work with one version, then a new version comes out, and those codes can just go down the drain. It also depends, I guess, on your Visual Studio too. But I mean, that was one thing that I ran into issues with. There's not much of an environment right now. I did have another environment which was basically like a waterfall, a mountain of waterfall that was working with firefly effects and steam and all, but I didn't put in here because there was issues with terrain. If I wanted to adjust terrain, it would affect actually everything that was built on prior. I also have other things I wanted to add in, like I originally wanted to add in like frogs that you could interact with. If you got too close, they would hop away. Originally it was going to be like a pond of water. I had like reeds, rocks, and stuff, where once you actually got too close to a frog that's sitting on like a lily pad or something, would jump and go into the water and would actually swim around. But I said, due to events that happen in real life and not having days where I wasn't feeling well, a lot of this stuff wasn't coded in. It was planned, but not coded in. Another thing not coded in that's in here is actually the clock. It's supposed to show, because these events are actually supposed to happen over like a night. So technically this is supposed to be like maybe 9 o'clock at night. I just haven't got coded in yet, because this is one thing that I'm going to have to actually really research into coding, because I know how to do a timer, but I don't know actually how to make an actual clock yet. So this right here is actually showing that this camera or camcorder is actually recording while you search. And unfortunately, you don't have the option of actually taking this scene down, because you are not going to be going into first-person view. You're going to stay in third-person view right now. But this is just to show that yes, that while you're here looking around, the camcorder is actually supposed to be recording while she does her video. This is the player stats. You have lighter fuel, which I'm actually going to work on actually make where when you use the lighter, it actually goes down and you have an animation lighter coming up and flicking on, which I don't have right now. This is health, which was mainly meant to be a slider, but unfortunately I couldn't get the slider to work, but I managed to get the text one working. And right now I think it's there was a button that would set the health down, but again, as I said, I haven't tested everything officially out, so a lot of the code's busted. So, but yeah, there's supposed to be more than this, but as I was trying to get this to work, I didn't put everything in. But basically, this, you're playing as Kanna, and this is her trying to get. Certainly, this was meant to have a panel on the back, and it's supposed to have. There's another thing like data transferring and the date, and it's supposed to be like the camera wasn't working, and she finally gets it working. That was her text. But when you start, you're basically right here before the woods, because basically I'm not sure if I'm going to actually have the mountains here, or if I'm going to have like maybe where Kanna was actually exploring beforehand. So, but basically, when the game actually starts, you're going to have a scene where she says, I better pick up my bag or something like that. So, and here's the bag. Just have to move forward. Once you pick it up, we get inventory, which of course you can click, but it's not working right now because I decided, because I mean, the only things really coded in is health, the lighter. There is a working candle system at the moment, but you don't see the candle or the flame at the moment because it's not coded in to do it. I have a thing where it shows you that text tells you if you have a candle or not. Basically, you start with one candle just a test, but once you pick up the bag, you get your flashlight, which moves with you, and if you press F, you get the light. If you press F, you can turn it off. At some point, there will be a battery gauge showing how much is left on the flashlight. Because when you get to the actual start of the circus, you're not going to get to use the flashlight. You're going to actually have to use a lantern or candle, where this is where the lighter comes in. Because in order to use the candles, you're going to have to use the lighter. Because I would say probably back in the Edo period, you probably didn't have lighters. You probably used oil, I would say. It'd be more the oil lanterns, so but yeah, this is basically the main part of the UI. And of course, if you wanted to use the lantern per hand, which I haven't gotten everything recorded, you do that, and that's actually your lantern. There'd be a candle and a flame in here, and what we do, you don't have that candle actually in lit right way. You press C and it'll tell you if there's a candle. The candle will go in, and basically then you'd use the lighter to light the candle. And if the candle went out again, you press C, you have no candles. And you'd have a thing where, as I said, it's not coded in yet, where the lighter will actually go down and you'd have a flame show up. Another thing I want to do is like the clear lighter health, the battery for the flashlight. I also have it where this is different, because I don't think I've ever seen anybody do it like this, where you have a candle health meter. Basically what it is when while you're playing your candle, when you have full health, I'll go into the thing here and show it. As I say, it's not actually coded in. Let's see. Let me take off the main canvas and that. Don't need. To show this working, when the candle is actually full health, this will be the effect you get. It would be red, and your light would be red. Now, if you're about 75 to 50%, the candle will change to a green, and the light will be like a green. This is not, I haven't really officially decided if it's going to be that color or what, but this is just to show that, oh, your candle's about half-life, and that you might want to worry about, if you don't have candles, trying to find a candle and stuff like that. So, and if your flame's actually close to dying, it would turn to this blue, which, as I say, is a very, basically when you get to this stage, I would say you're better hoping to have a candle and hoping to have lighter fluid, so you can actually relight this lantern, because if not, if it goes out, you really don't have a light. But you can also have a candle and no flame, so that's basically, and of course, show it with the actual darkness. But yeah, let's see. Basically, use arrow keys or WASD to actually move the character. This is the forest. I don't have the bag or that. I'm just going to show what it's like in the actual game. But as you go through, you can actually stop, explore the forest. Basically, it's like an open world. I really don't want to have the person just have to go straight to the circus. If they want to explore the woods when I actually create this environment, I'm going to have to probably try to get animals put in there that they can interact with, like rabbits, birds. I mean, really, I want the whole game to be like, interactive. It's not just like Telltale where you have to go and do this to advance. You can sit there, if you don't want to do a certain thing, unless it's like one of the things necessary to win the game, then yeah. And of course, as you continue, you eventually will come out into where the circus is going to, or to start the circus. This is where I plan to the mountains and the waterfall features. This is another thing that's not working. I don't know what happened to this code, as it was working in another one. I went in to check it to make sure I ran the code, the game, checked, and for some reason again, I think it's due to the new Unity that the code's not working. I have to go in and actually rewrite the code. But on both sides, you will have monsters patrolling the area. These are actually the guardians, protectors of this Edo period circus. And technically, you're going to be entering into something, because really, the ruins, you're going to be like crossing over into another like plane or something. It's not really going to be the area that you know. Because once you get here, you're technically meant to have the lantern. So, this is technically meant to be your lantern area. But as you can see, the dogs, if you get close to this demon hound here, he will actually watch you. Originally, he was meant to attack, come over when you're so close and attack you. But again, as I said, this is a script that I haven't had a chance to actually go and see what the issue is with. So, I mean, a few of the codes I'm going to have to actually rewrite in the 2021 Unity and see if that's the issue, because I had some that when I was doing in the other Unity were not working, but when I brought them over into the 2019 they worked. Basically, there's no win or lose situation right now because I don't have the actual boss in, but technically during the course of exploring you will discover things about the past, because basically there is like a little story that I'm putting in that's kind of based off of other things, but it's not one that was actually part of the original song or part of the information I found. But basically, this circus is one of the ones that was supposed to be going around the Edo period. And the ringmaster did spare engagements. He had people that every town he went to, he had to get fresh victims, because you didn't have really milk care back then, so it was probably not uncommon. You see the experiments or the freaks with rotten flesh. They could have had maggots. I'm pretty sure probably a lot of them died between transportation, so I'm pretty sure you would need a fresh pile of bodies every so often. And they would say, a lot of people say, probably your best thing during this time period, if you were born into the poor families or soldier, your best bet was to die on the operating table and not die as being an actual freak. So, I mean, But yeah, you're going to have like a set of things that you're going to have to do or find. And to do that, I mean, one would be like a locket that belonged to one of the victims. Technically, you're trying to solve what happened. And you'd go, and the last thing would eventually be like, I'd say about 2 or 3 fights with the ringmaster, or the ringleader of the actual circus. I think the first one would probably be his actual form. Then you'd probably have to face like a skeleton. Then once you've done that, then technically the story is going to be open where did these people survive? What happened to the experiments that Rose and went after the ringmaster? Stuff like stuff like that. It'd be like more your interpretation. It's like suddenly after Canada defeats the ringmaster, you come back, and suddenly she would be part, I think, a conversation. Somebody's trying to find her, and there'll be a conversation like, do you think this person survived? Do you think they survived? What do you think happened to them? And of course, because back then there probably wasn't no records, there's really no knowledge of actually what happened to the characters that supposedly survived. So I wanted where it's open, where you think, oh, they did survive, or they didn't survive. So I mean, but basically, the only other thing left to do is the pause menu, which, of course, you can X. And the pause menu, technically, it's supposed to be when you have it up. This is supposed to all be paused, but it's not in there yet. It tells you it's been paused. You have an option of main menu. You have a language selection, which when you click, pulls up your selection. A credit scene, because a lot of the stuff in here actually came from different sources. A lot of it did come from the Unity store, but some was actually stuff I had to take and edit to make work. Like the arm, I had to actually take a model and edit that to have the one arm. Because, I mean, it would be silly to have both hands out when she's going to have one hand holding the camcorder, so. Also, I plan to have footsteps in, so these won't work yet, but they'd be turned off for like your footsteps. There's also going to be nature sounds like frogs, birds. I actually have the frog sound. I just don't have it in yet, because, as I said, that would have been a lot of coding that right now I wouldn't even know if it worked. If I did have it coded, I would probably, because this was about, I think, February, I wanted to just actually code these, and I was like, and most of the February coding is actually coding it's bugged now, so, as I said, a lot of it needs to go back over, but the music ones work. Technically, if you press that, it turns off your music, and if you press this, it turns it back on. And the music in the background is on Timeless Ruins. It comes from Darren Curtis's website. He provides actually free music for game makers and people that do like movies and stuff. So I mean, then the last thing would be the language section, which I researched to see what the most used languages are. So I know English and Spanish are usually the main two that you find in most games, with I guess French and German kind of being in there with Russian. I'm not too sure about the Japanese and Chinese and Hindi. I know there's a lot of games out there that are both English and Japanese, but I'm not too sure. I've never seen a Hindi game yet with Hindi, but I mean I've seen most games so you can have the option of mainly English, Spanish, and French. So, I mean, I don't think the English was coded in, but again, I don't know what happened. I went to try to code the close button, and it broke the English for some reason. But you can click on Spanish, and it'll tell you, come up and say, you have selected to go into the Spanish version of the game. Which again, the close button's wonky. I'm going to have to go and try to find the other pause menu code and fix that. But apparently this will mean everything that's in English in here, like the text, the stuff up here, the recording, will all go to Spanish. Basically, I'm not sure about the actual name going to Spanish, because I don't think Canada has the Spanish name, but basically it will all go to like Spanish. And it'd be the same if you did like French, it would all go French. If you wanted Japanese, it would go into kanji. I'm not sure what the Chinese one is. If you wanted Russian, it would go Russian. If you wanted like German, it would go to the Dutch. So I mean, really, it's like there's like a lot planned to go into this, but right now it's more getting the English one done. I just like having some menus up and ready to go. So basically, I think that's all that I need to showcase in the game. Other than there is a model for the lantern. It's not, as I say, it's not been coded up yet. I had to actually refix the terrain. But other than that, I think that's everything I need to explain besides the waypoint AI system, which was shown with the enemies. So I think that's all.